Welcome into the Eagles Dynasty Review, looking at the Eagles from 2023 and beyond. And man, one of the weirder seasons for a team like that I can remember, going from should have winning the Super Bowl in last season, the 2022 season, to starting off 10-1 to finishing 11-6 and being bounced in the first round by the Buccaneers, who, barely made the playoffs because they were in a bad division. So, Brian, Eagles in terms of fantasy, though, still a lot of optimism.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's hard not to have optimism about them, given their quarterback is awesome, and their offensive pieces in general are, if not great, they are still definitely very startable. So.
Yeah.
It kind of reminds me of the Cardinals from a few years ago. Didn't they start off like 8-0, and then they just started like losing all kinds of games?
Yeah, I think. But you add the fact that they should have won the Super Bowl the year before. It was kind of like, it's just crazy. The NFL season seems short all the time when you compare it to the other sports leagues. But then you realize like how much can change in just like 3 weeks. Like Eagles were like, who can beat the Eagles on either side? Who can stop them in the NFC? Who can beat them in the Super Bowl? And we're talking about that on Thanksgiving. And then by Christmas, you're talking about like, wow, the Eagles suck, like it's just, it's crazy how much can change in NFL. But as I said, 11-6, they kept their head coach, Nick Sirianni. They did bring in a new defensive and offensive coordinator, Vic Fangio, who's, considered one of the best defensive coordinators in the NFL today. Is their defensive coordinator. Brought in Kellen Moore as their offensive coordinator from the Chargers. So we'll see about that. They have $20 million in cap space, 19th most. They have 9 draft picks, and they've been really good in the draft, including 4 in the top 100. In terms of free agents, Marcus Mariota, not much to talk about there. DeAndre Swift, Boston Scott, and Rashad Penny are all free agents from the running back room. So we'll see. They're going to have a whole new running back room there. No one really else to talk about at wide receiver or tight end. So we'll just get into it with Jalen Hurts, who we don't need to spend a whole lot of time. He is falling. A lot of people were heading into the 2023 season. It was like Mahomes, Allen, Hurts in that tier, right? And if you are an Eagles fan, maybe you're taking Jalen Hurts. He's fallen out of the tier. He's QB5. I think it's a little bit of an overreaction. I'd still take him over Stroud, and I'd probably still take him over Lamar. But I understand why people have moved him there. I don't really know if there's a whole lot to talk about here, though. He's still a really good player. He's going to score a bunch of touchdowns. I guess the tush push potentially going away, or the Philly, the brotherly shove, maybe going away. Does that take away his fantasy production? Maybe. I mean, they can still sneak the ball. So, I don't know. Where are you at with Hurts? Do you think we need to spend too much time talking about him?
No, I think you kind of summed it up pretty well. It's like, even if the tush push goes away, I don't think that necessarily means he's, it doesn't mean he's going to get no touchdowns, like rushing touchdowns. So it's just kind of like, yeah, it definitely will affect his value somewhat, but I don't know. I don't think enough to like really move him. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and a lot of people were worried about, they're complaining more about the offensive coordinator, and that was the problem. And now you get Kellen Moore in here, who potentially is better. We'll see. So that could really help him. So I think I'm still happy. Like, if I'm at the 105 and I can get Jalen Hurts in the startup draft, like, I'm super happy, So these other guys, I mean, Mariota's a free agent. There's not much there. Tanner McKee's a little interesting. Like, he was a rookie last year. He was one of those pre-draft, like if you looked at it in February, around this time last year, March of last year, there was mock drafts drafting him going in the second round. He fell all the way to the 6th. He's obviously behind Jalen Hurts, but he did look good in preseason. I think he's like, it's tough because he's never going to take Jalen Hurts' job, but if there's an injury, like I think Tanner McKee could potentially be solid. So just something to think about there. But again, if you need to make roster cuts, he might be up there. But I do think he's going to be the QB2 for the Eagles. And then the running backs, another kind of like this whole team, a lot of weird fantasy seasons and just seasons in general for this team. DeAndre Swift, like that second game of the year, he took he had 25 half PPR points. He was awesome for the next 5 straight weeks, 2 to 6. And even through their bye, he was really good. And then he was just nothing. They just stopped giving him the ball, really. He had a couple good games after the bye, but where are we at with DeAndre Swift at this point, who is looking for another team? I don't know if he comes back to the Eagles. He could. He's 25 years old, just turned 25. So he's still young. Like, should he be considered? He's already 18. Is that fair for him, according to Keep Trade Cut?
Yeah, he is definitely an interesting guy because it seemed like, for the few years that he was in Detroit, his kind of superpower, in addition to like breaking off like just like big plays in general, was his involvement in the passing game. And Philly doesn't really throw to their running backs, and so we kind of saw that flipped on its head a little bit. He got way more carries than he's ever had. Obviously, he played basically the whole season, only missed one game, and we just saw the targets didn't evaporate, but they still went down by close to 30% or something like that. So yeah, it'll be kind of interesting to see. I think if he goes somewhere else, like his value, depending on where he goes, probably should have thought about this. Like, where do they need a pass catching running back? Where he would be utilized in that way.
I think his value has a really good chance to actually go up. So like, just trying to, like the Chargers need a running back, like teams that kind of need running backs, like the Chargers do. I mean, maybe Tennessee does, however they approach things. Maybe like a Chicago, if they're not confident in their guys there. Minnesota needs a running back. Maybe Denver, if he fits Sean Payton's system a little bit more. Maybe Las Vegas, if Josh Jacobs isn't back. New Orleans, if they lose Kamara. There's a lot of spots for him, I think, for sure. I don't think, if you take into the fact that he could catch more and he's not going to have a quarterback scoring 15 rushing touchdowns, which definitely hurt him a lot because he got tackled at the one several times this year. I think his value could actually go up a little bit. Like, and he could be couldn't you see him being Rachaad White? Like, couldn't you see DeAndre Swift doing that? Like, probably a better player overall if he gets that opportunity where they give him everything. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if he has 250 carries and, 60 catches and he has like 1,400 total yards and then, throw in 7-8 touchdowns. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if he could do that somewhere.
Yeah, no, I think you're right about that. It is kind of funny. Like, it seemed like he was basically a dead asset going into the year. And then he did have that big game. And then like he immediately shot back up to, RB 16, 15 ish, which is right around where he is now. He's 18 now, but there's just like that huge crater because, they were talking about like, Kenneth Gainwell. And we saw that in the first game where it's like, oh, I guess DeAndre Swift is dead to the Eagles, like, even though they just paid him. So it's like, it's kind of crazy to just see like that huge dip for like a week, and I'm sure a lot of fantasy managers were panicking at that time. And so I don't know if he's necessarily like, it kind of depends on like, I think he's a fine asset to move on from to recoup some of his value. But I'm fine holding him too, because I do agree with you. Like, he could totally bounce back a little bit in value. I just don't know how high he goes, from 18 maybe up to what do you think? Do you think he can get all the way back up to RB12 value in Dynasty?
No. It was more about like I could see him being a top 15, 12, 15, top 12 to 15 running back for the next couple of years. In
Like
terms not finishing, yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Which for Dynasty, he's never going to get that high again because it's only he's only getting older. So, but yeah, it's another good example of like tear off these running backs that are in this RB18 range and grab someone who's in the RB30, 28 range, like a DeAndre Swift last year, and you get a top, I don't know what he finished this year, but top 23 overall. So you get a top 24 running back. So I don't know. I think there's still optimism for him for sure if he can just get someone to give him the workload, which he kind of got last year. But obviously touchdowns.
What's kind of interesting is in half PPR, I see he basically 23 is the lowest he's ever finished, and every year before this, he played less games and he finished even higher. So when we've all seen it, like it's like, oh, there goes DeAndre Swift for a 75-yard touchdown kind of a thing, 40-yard touchdown. Like he has that big play potential for sure. And it's kind of funny because we say, well, you can't necessarily count on that, but it's like, it's definitely in his toolbox, So it didn't, anyways, I think we said it, what we need to.
Yeah, for sure. No one really else exciting. I mean, like Kenneth Gainwell is like their only running back that played last year that's on their roster, but I don't think it's going to stay that way. This is kind of a prime spot for a running back to go to. Boston Scott is not much. Rashad Penny, did nothing this year. Lou Nichols, I kind of liked him in college, but then I was looking at him yesterday. I think he ran like a 4.82, which is like people were talking about Kyron at a 4.6 being slow. Like that's really slow. 4.82 is like there's probably some offensive linemen that are getting close to that. So I don't know. I don't know what he is, to be honest, but we could just move on from that running back room at this point. AJ Brown, if you listened, I know we're plugging them again, the fantasy footballers this week, they do like the consistency stuff. And he was like, AJ Brown to start the year was like wide receiver 2. Remember he had like that, 5 or 6 games of over 125 yards. He was on pace for like 1,900 yards. And then the second half of the year, he was like wide receiver 40 in consistency and was on pace for like 900 yards. It was crazy. I don't really know what happened. I don't know. It coincided with the team sucking, but weird. Just really, really weird.
So it was his fault.
Maybe. I don't know. It was just super weird. And he like removed before their playoff game against Tampa Bay. Like he did the remove all the Eagles from his social media type of move. I don't know, man. I really don't know what to like. He's still awesome. He's still very valuable. He's still a top 10, pretty easily a top 10 receiver. I just hope this whole offense kind of bounces back. I really don't know what to say about how he finished, to be honest. Like it doesn't really make sense. But he's still easily, top 7, top 10 at the worst, top 9. Anything you want to say about AJ Brown?
No, I think basically he's awesome, and I think he's definitely a stud. Like I think he's like, while he's not necessarily, it's kind of funny to like say like he had. So let's think about it this way: he did like kind of finish not as good as what we're used to. Still had like 1,450 yards and 7 touchdowns and stuff. So it's kind of like, I know that's not what you were saying, but it's just kind of like, it's just like, look at that in regards to like, we didn't, I just think it's kind of interesting, like where it's like, oh, even if he wasn't who we thought or who we needed him to be, like in the last, month, basically, he was still awesome. like for the entire year, like on a overall anyway. So
Yeah. I do like to break it down though, because it's it's not helpful when a guy from week 9 to 18 has 517 yards. That's bad, which is just it tells you how amazing his first 8 weeks were. But like we need it the whole season, like if we're gonna win. So it's just crazy that it was that it was 900 yards in the first 8 games and 500 yards in the second half of the year. So I really don't know why. I can't explain why it was. So there's just some bad games in there, but hopefully it works out and this whole team turns it around. Devontae Smith is still another one. He's just still a good asset. He's still wide receiver 13. I kind of expect that to keep up. Like they talked about him and Kellen Moore in Kellen Moore's offense is going to be a big beneficiary of that. So he finishes wide receiver 20. He missed a game. Like still had some really good boom games. He's just a good receiver. I don't really know, again, if there's much to talk about. It's more of just like so weird their whole season. So, I don't know if there's – what do you want to say about Devontae Smith, who still had another good year? Very similar to what he did in 2022, actually.
Yeah. I don't think there is a whole lot to say. It's like, we're starting him every week, like, and just because of his big play, or not big play, but sorry, big game potential. I don't think there is much to say. He's a young dude who's going to be there for a while. Hold on one sec. Where was he drafted at? Like, was he a first round guy?
Yeah.
Okay. So most likely
12.
Yeah, it says he was round 1, pick 10. It'll be kind of interesting. I'm sure he'll get the 5th year option picked up this year, because it'll happen soon, right? In the next couple of months is when they have to decide that. So, I don't think there's a whole lot to say. He's a great asset to have on your team.
Yep, definitely. And again, if this offense returns to what it was in 2022, it's, both A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith were top 10 receivers. So, and then, there's no one else. It's a nice offense because everything's funneled between those two receivers and Dallas Goedert. So there's really no other receiver to talk about. And then, Dallas Goedert, again, like just a good tight end. Like we talked about this with the Eagles all last year when we were doing preview videos. They're just a very easy team. I know they sucked at the end, but they were just like, start Jalen Hurts, start Devontae Smith, start A.J. Brown, start Dallas Goedert, Like there's nothing else to talk about. So, he is tight end 17. He's 29 years old. I'd still take him over Freiermuth, Musgrave, Likely, Mayer, Kmet. Like, so I think he's kind of ranked a little low, to be honest. But I don't know. It's a combination of age / Eagles not kind of finishing as strongly as they could have. So what do you got on Goddard?
Yeah, I think he's like, if he is being actually valued that way in your league, I think you should go pick him up, because I think he has just as much, like definitely like Musgrave is one that you mentioned that like really makes me go, like why is granted, they're only like a couple of spots apart and they're valued pretty similarly, but it's like I'd much rather have Goddard than Musgrave just because of the crowded receiving room in Green Bay. It's like, I don't know. I mean, they have, 4-ish like wide receivers who we know can get targets in Green Bay, plus Aaron Jones, plus, Tucker Kraft is there. It's just kind of like, I don't know. It does seem like a little bit of a overreaction for sure. Granted, the age, like you mentioned, is a big factor for that. But
I do have stuff to say about Musgrave
when we get there.
It's just weird. Like Tucker Kraft basically did what Musgrave did when he stepped in. And then Musgrave wasn't on the injury report their last game against the 49ers, and he just didn't play. Like, I think the last 2 weeks he didn't really play in the playoffs, and he wasn't really on the injury report. It was just weird, but we'll get to that, I guess, when we do. But yeah, he's Goddard. I do think is ranked a little low. So I think that's.
I was just going to say, why is he 4 spots behind Isaiah Likely?
Just like recency bias stuff,
I know, but
age.
That's just crazy to me. But yeah,
it is.
I know. I kind of know the answer, but it's still kind of like, what the hell?
Yeah, for sure. But it's like, we've seen Goddard, even with like so much going to AJ Brown and Devontae Smith, we've seen Goddard, do really well. So I believe he's under contract. Yeah, they can't get out of it until 2025, so he's still going to be on this team. So, that's it for the Eagles. It's pretty easy there. We'll finish up. We'll be back with the Cleveland Browns, another interesting team. Any last words on the Eagles, Brian?
No. Okay. Batman something. I don't know.
yeah, Batman. Jason Kelsey or AJ Brown, or is that their nickname or something? I don't know.
Yeah, I remember
we talked about it before.
Yeah, it's like Fast Batman and something else Batman. I don't know. Yeah.
I feel like you shouldn't be allowed a nickname that's like already kind of like a nickname for someone else. You know what I mean? Like, it's Swole Batman is what it is in Pro Football Reference. I don't know. It's just like,
well, Batman's an alias, right? For Bruce Wayne, it's not a nickname.
Yeah, so. I know, but
I get everything.
Yeah, I like Devontae Smith's Slim Reaper. I like that one. He's Skinny Batman too.
Also. Yeah, I was gonna say he has a Batman name too.
And Rubber Band Man as well.
What?
So yeah, Rubber Band. Good.
I don't know. It just made me think of like Gumby for some reason, because that's what I call Lamar Jackson, because it's like his feet and his shoulders can be like over each other, but like his hip is like 2 feet the other direction when he's dodging tackles. Like it just looks so like bendy,
Yeah. Slim Reaper though, that's a pretty good nickname.
Yeah, it's good. I like it.
Cool. That was a good talk, but we'll be back with the Browns in the next video. We'll catch you guys then.